Anyway.
Hey, Facebook, good day.
G'day. G'day, mate.
G'day.
How's it going? We're here again. It's a Monday lunchtime, and that can only mean one thing. It's time for the live podcast, which we are just going to get set up with our windows, and I'm going to shut things down and probably lose everything. Ooh, there we go. So, yeah, today we are going to be talking staff and
Finding them?
keeping them, hiring them, and
Firing them.
So, yes, it's one of those topics that keeps coming up every time and time again, really, doesn't it? With certainly with our private clients and with you guys in the group as well. Finding good staff makes all the difference, and I think as you're hearing today, sometimes we've got that right, and many times we've got it spectacularly wrong. But it really does make the difference between where you want to be and where you actually end up is down to the quality of the people within your business. So, as always, guys, leave your comments, leave your thoughts in the video here. We will pick them up, do a kind of quick Q&A after we finished the live recording of the podcast. Yeah, let's crack on, shall we?
Shall we?
G'day. Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 12 of the Big Idea Podcast. John here as always, alongside Jason.
Hi, John. Hello,
And
everyone.
yeah, and we're here once again to talk to you this week about staff. So we're looking at how to find them, how to hire them,
And then how to fire them.
well, and also how to keep them. So if you get a good one, we don't just want to fire them, we would actually like to keep some of our good staff. And I make that distinction between good staff because, why do you need good staff? Well, to me, they are the leverage that you'll need as a small business owner if you're going to stop owning a job.
Owning a job?
Owning a job, yes.
Okay.
Because in my opinion, if you are the only person in your business, you don't actually have a business, you have a job. And you just own that job. You can't fire yourself. Well, you could if you really wanted to. But in my mind, you own a job. And when you take on your first member of staff, I think you stop owning a job and you start owning a business. One of the things I always recommend sort of people who are just starting out in their business career read is the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. He talks in there about making that transition from being, I think it's an engineer.
Technician, I think.
Technician.
That's it, technician.
And he talks about, people set up a business, making cupcakes, for example, and they do very well at making cupcakes. And when you start off, you do everything yourself, and you get some success. And you end up in a place whereby you're very, very busy, and you're making okay money, and the business is doing all right. But you are working those 100-hour weeks because you're doing everything yourself. And it's then how do you get that transition from jack of all trades to actually letting go and letting someone else come into the business. So I'm not going to dissect that book completely, other than it is recommended reading for anybody who wants to actually make that transition. Particularly, if you're bootstrapping a business and you're not taking on loads of investment, it's very easy and actually makes sense to do everything yourself in the early days. But as you grow, it makes less sense to be jack of all trades, master of none. And you need to stop believing, and I know this will be a line that many people out there listening will be saying is, well, nobody can do it better than I can. The question is, no one can do what better than you. It may be your specific trade, i.e. the making of the cupcakes, that can't be done better than you. But what about the buying of supplies? What about the dealing with the admin? What about the marketing? What about the selling?
Serving the customers, yeah.
Exactly. Is it true that nobody can do it better than you, or is it just that I haven't looked and I just want to do it myself? Because you can get people in who specialise at each role for, in many cases, a lot less than you'd pay yourself. So I'm going to use the example here of one of our clients who shall remain nameless, but she knows who she is. And she bills her time out at £90 an hour. But she's doing her own admin, and she works from home, and she spends a lot of time cleaning her own house. So we had a conversation along these lines of, well, look, you need to bring your first member of staff in. It's time. And she was very reticent to do that. Or I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. I'm not sure if I can afford to do that. So we had a little bit of toing and fro. And I asked her the question, well, look, would you pay someone £90 an hour to push a hoover around your house or to do some paperwork? And she said, well, no, of course I wouldn't. Well, I said, well, that's what you're doing now. You're paying yourself £90 an hour, or effectively, you're not billing any client for that hour. If you're spending an hour doing admin, that's an hour you could have billed at £90. Instead, you've chosen to do admin, which you could have got someone in for £10 an hour, £15 an hour, who loves to do admin, who loves the paperwork, and then go earn 90 quid for that 1 hour.
And not forgetting that you might not be actually doing your billable £90 an hour at that stage. You could be getting more business in, which actually brings in a lot more than your £90 an hour. So it's not just about replacing your time kind of thing. You're actually finding the time to do better stuff.
Exactly. And one of my mentors always used to say to me, are you doing the £150 an hour tasks, or are you doing the £5 an hour jobs? And, you know, just taking the moment to actually think through that and think, actually, what should I be doing?
It's one of the key things that you really hated, wasn't it?
Oh, well, like bookkeeping.
Your bookkeeping, you really, really detested it. I always remember kind of like 2 days of every month.
It was, I'd go through this thing of, I knew it was coming, right, I've got to do the quarterly management accounts, say the end of March. They've got to be in by the 17th of March. So guess what day I would be doing the accounts? It would be the 16th and 17th of March. And it would take me 2 whole days every quarter. I would not do anything else in the business. So effectively growing the business just stopped for 2 days so that I could sift through paperwork and put it into Excel and work out VAT and what column things are going to go in. I absolutely detested it. And then, one of my mentors just said to me, well, why are you doing that? I said, well, no one else can do this. Only I can do it. He said, no, what a load of rubbish. He said, a bookkeeper can do bookkeeping. He said, you may need to spend half a day with them or a day with them in the initial, first time you engage them, just to actually train them in how you work. But other than that, they love to do this thing. This is, this is nirvana for them. And, so, I mean, so it used to take me 2 days every quarter. It now takes a bookkeeper maybe an hour, 2 hours a month, costs me 50 quid. They send me an email saying, hi John, I've gone through the accounts. I've got 5 queries. What's this? What's that? What's that? I spend now 10 minutes a month looking at the bookkeeping for the stuff that no one else can do. Only I can do. But I don't find out what that is. I get an expert in who loves to do that. And say it costs me 50 quid. Now, can I earn more than 50 quid given 2 full days working on my business?
Hell yes.
Of course I can. I've been in business for 17 years now. I could have stayed a one-man band all that time. But I mean, if I'd done that, I wouldn't have anywhere near the wealth that I've got now, and I wouldn't enjoy it as much because I would still be doing all the jobs I don't really like doing and I'm not very good at. Mm-hmm. So now I just employ people who love to do what I hate, and that leaves me free to do what I love doing, which is marketing, which is investing, which is growing the business. And that's the stuff that earns me more money than it would if I was doing the admin or the bookkeeping or the web design or the technical coding myself. I could learn to do that. And I think it doesn't just apply to jobs in the business too, because again, I work from home, so I pay someone else to clean the house, to iron the clothes, to wash my cars, to mow the lawn, to do all the DIY, and then I invest that time that I'm not doing these tasks, I invest that time back into the business, which pays for them to do that. Mm-hmm. So I end up, then I've got a cleaner house, I've got freshly pressed clothes, I've got professionally valeted cars, I've got stripes in my lawn, and DIY that actually stays standing for longer than 3 weeks, all for less money than by doing it myself. You know, I used to cut my own grass, and it used to take me an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've got a guy who comes in every 2 weeks or every week in the summer. He's 15 minutes, he's done, and there's stripes in it, and it's perfect. And whilst he's doing that, I'm sat in my office planning marketing campaigns, which are more than paying for him to do that, particularly if it would take me an hour and a half. So that's why you need to get good staff. Let's look at where to find them.
Okay.
Or specifically, I think let's start with where not to find staff. And again, this, you know, little caveat here, this is all stuff from our experience. So you may have found an absolute superstar in one of these places, but predominantly, generally, broad brush,
We haven't.
it hasn't worked for us. So, first place, we would no longer find staff is the Jobcentre, because that was our first port of call, wasn't it, when we started hiring?
Absolutely, yeah.
We knocked on the door. I used to work in the Jobcentre when I was a civil servant, so it was natural for me to think, right, where do I find people to work for me? Of course, the Jobcentre. And then it strikes me now that the kind of people who go to the Jobcentre looking for jobs are people who don't currently have jobs and are struggling to find jobs.
Or have to go to the job centre in order to get
Satisfy their benefits.
satisfy the benefit claim, yeah.
I see it now as people who the general jobs market don't want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you may get lucky and find an absolute gem there. But of all the people who work for us now, not a single one of them came via the Jobcentre. Whereas when we first did our massive expansion, 90% of them were from the Jobcentre.
Yeah.
And they went back there again 3 years later. So number 2, friends and family. Again, it's an easy place to find staff because I know someone. And I can only think of one here. In fact, no, that's not even friends and family. That's friends of friends. Because the thing with friends and family is when it's easy to hire them, it's really hard to manage them. You know, you try giving a disciplinary to your niece or your nephew.
Or your wife.
Or your wife, yeah, exactly. You know, you try telling them, I'm sorry, but that wasn't good enough. And you try sacking them. Bloody tough. Friends and friends, that's another place not to look. Sometimes this can work out, and gentleman sat to my right was hired as a friend of a friend. But I think that is the exception rather than the rule.
I've always been the exception.
You just don't listen to the rules. That's more like it.
Yeah, that's the one. I make my own rules.
See previous comment about hard to manage and impossible to sack. You know, I've tried 4 times now. He refuses to go. We haven't paid him since 2009. But I mean, yeah. So
it's awkward, isn't it? It's awkward.
It is.
Ruin your friendships, ruin relationships with. You know, it's just really difficult. And you know, for some people it can work, but
yeah.
in our experience,
Yeah.
it's difficult. And if you can avoid that lump of hot coal, then that's one that you could probably do best with avoiding.
It is definitely because, you know, if your friend recommends someone and they turn out to be awful, you don't want to then go back to their friend and say, "Oh yeah, thanks for sending me that." Bloody hell. So where can you find good staff? Well, I think the best way to find good staff is to create a place that's so amazing to work at that people find you and approach you asking to work for you. And that's kind of a little bit cliched. It's the whole Apple thing of, just create a wonderful workplace. But actually, we've done this, and we had a period between 2006 and 2013 where we talked about, I think in the Fear episode a few weeks ago, about we didn't hire anybody. We were absolutely petrified of employing people. And we ended up then with Joe, who's one of our tipsters now on our sports betting website. He'd done a little bit of outsourced work for us, and he said, I want to work for you guys. And he must have approached us about 3 times over the course of about 6 to 9 months, almost begging to work for us. And no, we don't hire people. We'll give you a little bit of freelance work. See if we can send you some more work. And I think eventually he just asked for like the 5th time, and I was going to Birmingham for the weekend, and I said to him, look, I'm going to Birmingham for the football. You live in Norwich. Let's meet up in Birmingham. Let's have a chat. So he came to Birmingham. He came on the train, 3-hour journey from Norwich, 3-hour journey from Plymouth for me. We met up, we had a chat. We said, okay, let's do this. But we created that place that he'd had a little taste of, because he'd come and worked as a third party, that was so good that he thought, this is where I want to work. And word does spread like that, particularly with good members of staff, that actually, you want to work for these guys because they are brilliant. Freelancers, outsourced partners, people per hour, Upwork, stuff like that. Those are the places that you can actually go out and try
before you buy.
Yeah, it is. Kind of find someone who's good. If that person isn't good, then try someone else. Often with these sites, there's a review system in place anyway, so you can see what other people have said about them. Well, actually, they work hard, or they don't quite follow instructions properly, or they don't respond to emails in a timely fashion. See if they'll fit into your business. Literally, hire them for a job first, and then see if they're available for the job.
But also, they may work out better that way. To be honest, that could be first steps to employing somebody is to outsource it. It helps you figure out who you kind of need as well, and for what roles. Yeah,
definitely, because so many people think, well, how can I commit to a full-time member of staff, a full-time salary? Well, the answer is you don't. Start by outsourcing. Start by taking on a VA and saying, well, okay, I've got some admin, an hour a day, 6 hours a week, half a day a month. Get a VA in. Sorry, for those listening who don't know what a VA is a virtual assistant. So it's like a personal assistant, but they don't come and sit in your office. They could be in Singapore, Hong Kong. Ours are in Manchester, and literally they will work. They will pick up the hours as and when you need them. So you don't need to worry about paying their salary for 40 hours a week. If you only need them for an hour a week, you only pay for an hour a week. Obviously, you pay more per hour for that. If you want a full-time admin person, it's probably not the best thing. But if you haven't got that full-time need, that's really good way of doing it. Your network is another one that I'm getting heavily into networking at the moment.
You are at the minute, aren't you?
And I think the more that you invest in your network, the more you've got this pool of people who are available should you need a copywriter, a marketer, a designer, an admin person, a techie. You're going to get no shortage of good recommendations. So again, the looking at the difference there between friends of friends, which is I know somebody, versus a network, I know somebody really good. I know the best person for that. Because your friends will tell you, I know someone who does that. I want someone who's good at it, not just someone that does it.
And they've done this for me, and here you can look at their work and you can see what they're up to.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They're reasonably priced and it fitted in with my business very well, and they're accommodating, whatever.
And you'll get the honest feeling of, but also you need to be careful about this, because you need to be absolutely specific in the brief, because otherwise they'll go off on a tangent, and you will get the negatives, because nobody's perfect. You need to know, well, actually, can I work with this person? All right, there are some positives, there are some negatives, but you'll hear the negatives. The friend will go, you'll love Jason, he's brilliant, he's perfect, you'll absolutely love him, whereas actually, a network will say, you'll love Jason, but...
Who wouldn't? Exactly.
Recruitment agencies, that's another place we've gone.
They all get a bit of bad press, don't they, recruitment agencies?
They do. I think that's mainly because they're always on the phone to people promising to fill jobs. And I think if you find a good recruitment agency, again, ask your network for recommendations. We've used sort of temp agencies in the past. Absolutely useless. Complete waste of time, because what will they send you? They will send you a body. We've got somebody who can type, somebody who is capable of picking up a telephone. Sorry, but we want a little bit more than that. So you do have to pay more for a good agency, but if you get a really good one, they're not just going to go through the motions of posting on the jobs boards. I mean, ideally, what they'll do is they'll do some pre-filtering. So when we've done any of our campaigns, we've gone out there and said, right, we've spoken to the agency, we've told them the type of person we want, the job role. They've then crafted the job listing.
Mm-hmm.
They've then taken all the applications in, they've sifted through all the CVs, and they've then given us a short list and said, well, look, here's 10 people. So 184 applied for the job, but we haven't had to sift through all those CVs. They've gone through, they've filtered the 184 down to, say, 30. They've then done an initial telephone interview with those 30. They've then ruled 20 of them out and said, right, here's the short list of 10. Let us know who you would like to speak to. So we then look at the 10 people. So yeah, that's not bad. Because the agency have had a little chat with these people, they can actually tell you a little bit about them apart from the bullshit that's written on the CV. Because if you've ever watched the interview stage of The Apprentice, where they rip apart the CV and say, oh, what's this you said? Oh, you led the team there. Oh, how big was that team then? Oh, it was just me, actually.
Yeah.
The CV is a work of fiction. And what a good recruitment agency will do is help you see through that CV as to what is the person actually like, how are they going to fit into your culture, are they going to fit into your culture? Another place we haven't specifically used ourselves, but I've seen used elsewhere, is Facebook ads, because I think that's really good for headhunting, because quite often you want someone, and again a recruitment agency will help you with this, you want someone who's perhaps already working for someone else in your sector, so perhaps maybe even your competitor. But if you use Facebook ads, you can actually drill down the type of person you want. You can even target a specific person if you knew enough about them to actually say, well, I know the person I want. He works for this guy, and he'd be perfect for me. Well, I'll tell you what, if you do the targeting, a little bit of Facebook stalking.
I was going to say, what better place to find out a bit more about them before you even make that conversation or
set up the ads. I mean, literally, Innocent Smoothies did this brilliantly. They needed to do a campaign, and they were looking at certain buyers who lived within, I think it was like a 3-mile radius. And what they did is they looked at these buyers. They targeted them on social media, so they were able to drill down, and so their adverts appeared all over social media. But then they bought billboards along these people's commute. They worked out, well, if they're going from this area of London, they're going to drive along here, and this is how they got to. So these people would go into their offices and they would see 3 billboard ads for Innocent Smoothies. They'd open up their Facebook page, it would be all over Facebook, and they'd then get retargeting happening, so it would be following them around the web. And they think, tell you what, these guys are everywhere. Well, they're not everywhere, but they're just laser targeted on that person.
Right.
So yeah, you can drill down to a specific person, or you can just say, well, actually, I want someone who's done work for this employer in the past. Well, actually, yeah, if they like that employer's page or a specific page or group in that sector, you can target that. And this kind of leads into putting together a whole marketing campaign. So the traditional building a list. Only this, the list here is the people who you'd like to work for you. Send them some sales letters in the form of leaflets, postcards, Facebook retargeting. Literally put together a whole campaign, lots of follow-ups, lots of touches. So Innocent did that really, really well. And it ended up getting, they were actually targeting buyers within a supermarket to get them into, but it works just as well for employees.
This is really good because there's lots of industries which are kind of saturated with workers and things like that. I'm thinking maybe care or something like that, but there's lots and lots of care agencies employing thousands of people to go and look after people, isn't there? But and to employ somebody to join your care agency or your care program, then that would be, how do you attract the right kind of person? It's not kind of the 17, 18-year-olds that you're kind of leaving school, that you're kind of wanting to perhaps have in there. You want somebody who's had a little bit of experience. It's really easy to perhaps use Facebook and then perhaps put a campaign together in terms to recruit, as opposed to necessarily selling them something. Because you are selling them something. You're selling them yourself as an employer. You're selling them your company, and you're selling them your work ethos, really.
Definitely. If you put together, a quick 2-minute YouTube video on what it's like to work in your place, or do some testimonials from existing members of staff, put that out on a Facebook ad, you're again showcasing it's a great place to work here to the laser targeted community of list of people who I want to work for me. So that's finding them. You then need to hire them. So get them along to an interview.
Just before we get to hiring them, I was going to suggest about knowing who you want to hire, your role, and getting your role right. I know we've got that right now. How do we go about that? Because when we first stepped into the world of employing people, we got it terribly wrong, I think.
Yeah, no, we did. Absolutely. We, I think our first sort of half a day or a day we spent at the Jobcentre hiring people, we went in with the intention of hiring one person for one role.
To do a little bit of admin for us.
Yeah.
We saw 6 people on that day.
And we hired how many of them?
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, hired 4 of them because they were really good people and they sounded really good and their CVs were really good, and having the interview with them, and they were asked to do a piece of work as well, weren't they, which they kind of brought, and it all actually, these are really good. We can find a role for them. They could be part of our organisation. That would work.
Definitely. But I think, again, we've made it far too easy for them, and just, rock up to the job centre. If you're a nice person, we'll find a job for you. We'll find something for you to do. What we do now is we put barriers in people's way to actually stop them to even getting there. So let's make it a 3-hour drive. So we've interviewed, Joe lived in Norwich, so we interviewed him in Birmingham. We had one guy who lived in Essex, so we interviewed him in Cheltenham. Again, drive across the country at your own expense. Perhaps there might be an overnight stay. Again, at your own expense. If the first question someone asks you is, do you pay bus fare? They're unlikely to be the superstar employee you're looking for. Rob's probably a good example as well. Rob was living in London and, come on down to Plymouth for an interview. Was it 4 hours on the train? We didn't do this with Rob, but make it a 7:30 a.m. start. Don't give them directions to the office. Sorry, can you not use Google? We did do something like that actually. We had like a hot desking type office, didn't we?
Oh,
that
right,
we used,
yeah.
and we struggled to find it. So we were doing the interview and we struggled to find where this building was. So we thought, brilliant. This is like an initiative test. If you can find the building and find your way in, you've almost passed the test. You've got the job. Again, if you're a nice person, we'll find something for you to do. Again, give them a task, and this is one that I think has worked really, really well for us. So give them something they're going to be doing in the role. So Rob, we knew he was going to be doing marketing, copywriting, so we said to him, write some copy for us. And we did that to everyone that came along for this role, and we had some varying quality. We had some wonderful essays which wouldn't have sold a thing, and we had some who I would question whether English was even their second language, let alone their first one.
And yet we still took Rob on.
We did that at the Jobcentre one, and I clearly remember we set them a task, because at the time we were doing net-free stuff, so it was a freebie site, so it was like a directory, and what we wanted to do was say, right, we gave people a list, and we got like a 500-word description of a product, and we said, right, what we need to do is turn this into a 100-word description, because that was kind of where we were with the website, was we had short, concise descriptions, really descriptive copy that highlighted the benefits. And I remember giving it to everyone, and we were quite impressed with lots of them. Well, 4 of them, we took them on. One of the 2 we couldn't even follow the in 100 words or less instruction, and kind of turned it into 1,000 words, didn't he? And it was like, whoa, you've been sat out there for 10 minutes, but you've done like 3 pages of A4 here. Completely not what we're looking for. You can't follow instructions. Thanks a lot. See you later.
By getting them to do a task, you get them to. You can. How much do they want to put effort into getting the job as well, and they can kind of do that. So how much they need to find out about you. If it's about your business that you're asking them to do, then they can actually. They've got to do a bit of research. They've got to see what they're going to be expected to do. If they do, then come and travel 3 hours to come in to see you, then kind of they're actually wanting of the job. It's not just a day out for them or ticking a box for the Jobcentre or whatever.
No, exactly. I know someone who literally he gets all the staff in 7:30 in the morning, lines them all up, and says, right, tell me one thing about my business. And just points at the first one. Tell me one thing about my business. Right, thank you for coming. I'll see you later. And it literally just, dismissed.
Oh,
Right, next, tell me one thing. Oh, well, you've got free racing tips. Cool, right, go and sit down, have a seat. Right, next person. You've got free footy tips. Yes, that's right. Cool, go and have a seat. Next one. You've got free race tips. Yeah, he said that. What? Something else. Thanks for coming. See you later.
That's a good bit of filtering, isn't it?
Literally, if they can't be asked to spend 5 minutes on Google finding out a little bit about the company, then how much preparation work are they going to put into pulling a marketing campaign together, dealing with customers? I mean, if you've already got existing staff, another thing we like to do is get them to do a quick 5-minute undercover interview. So,
come on, mate, I'll make you a cup of tea.
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of, you waiting to go in, where are you from? Just literally have a chat with them, not about what you're going to bring to the role or whatever, just, find out what sort of person they are and how are they going to fit in. It's the old analogy about football. They've got to fit into the dressing room. You don't want characters in there who are going to be disruptive to the team ethos, because quite often as business owners we'll go, oh my god, this guy's brilliant, he's got this qualification, he's got experience of working there, he's a fantastic salesman, but you know what, he may not work well with others. And when you put them in the team, they may go, we hate this guy, and then before you know it, they're quitting. All of this though is designed to evaluate their attitude rather than their aptitude. So unless you're hiring a doctor or a lawyer or someone who needs to have a certain level of qualification, when we look at the CVs, I pretty much ignore the bit that says qualifications. I may maybe look at do they have decent grasp of maths and English, C or above at GCSE, maths and English, right, good, tick that box. Do they have any relevant experience? For some roles that's important, for others perhaps not so much. Do they have the right attitude to be able to learn the rest? That's key for me. Attitude over aptitude every time. And there's a final question that I'd love to do. I don't know if we did this at the last one. We might have done actually. It's a question that is designed to solicit the skeletons from the closet.
Yes.
Because we've all heard horror stories about people who've taken staff on only to find out that they've actually got a conviction for stealing, or I'm actually pregnant and 3 months gone, and I probably should have told you, but hey, I'm off on maternity leave now, or this was only for a stopgap really while I go travelling. So the way to do this is, right, you get to the very end of the interview. All right, so you've gone through the whole, where have you done, what's your experience, what would you do in this situation? You've gone through the piece of work that you've asked them to do. You've asked them, do you have any more questions, anything you'd like to ask me? They then give their pre-prepared answer for that, because everyone asks that question. Then you ask the question that most people don't ask, and this has to be done in the right way. So it's got to be, right, cool, so any other questions, Jace? Right, oh no, thanks for coming. Oh, just one thing before we go, and you must then get your little hushed tone out so that they know this is very serious, and you eyeball them and say, right, Jace, is there anything else that you think I should know about you? Because I'm going to find out sooner or later. If I offer you the role, it's a lot easier if I find out now. So is there anything else that you'd like to tell me that I need to know about yourself? And I mean, I've heard of people disclosing pregnancies, bankruptcies, criminal records, the desire to emigrate, illnesses, you name it. People. I do like sleeping with my co-workers. Oh, do you? Right, okay. But they just get that. You almost get like an interrogator, because they've got all nice and friendly, like, oh, good, the interview's over, and then but is there anything else that I need to know about you? Oh, yeah, I'd better tell him, hadn't I? Because he's going to find out. It's almost like, bloody hell, I think I've got the job, but I need to disclose that thing, or I'm not going to get the job, or I'm not going to keep it because he specifically asked me. Yeah. There's certain things you're not allowed to ask in an interview, but is there anything you think I should know? That almost implies I know. I do. I know. And you can either tell me, or you can walk out the door and not get the job.
So we've got them then, mate. How are we going to keep them?
Well, do you know, I read a book last year by Daniel Pink called Drive, and it was all about motivation in the 21st century. It talked about how we always used to use the carrot and stick approach to motivate staff to do what we want to do. And he said, look, that doesn't work in the 21st century. What staff want now is to be self-motivated. They want autonomy, and most of all, they want to enjoy the work. So give them the freedom to work on their, work in their role, in their tasks, on their jobs. Don't give them all the shit jobs that no one else wants. Someone's got to do that, but give it to someone that actually enjoys doing that. I'm not suggesting that the workplace is all ping pong tables and bean bags, because it's not. We're here to make money, we're here to make sales. But what do people love about their job that they can do? Give them the autonomy to actually grow within a role. And another thing we find is the location here in Plymouth really works in our favour, because if Rob wants to leave us and go work for one of the bookmakers, well, he's got to move to Gibraltar or Malta or Israel, or certainly London. If you want to go anywhere else, well, you've got to move several hours away. If we get a good techie here, well, Facebook aren't going to poach them, Twitter aren't going to poach them, LinkedIn aren't going to poach them, because we are that little bit remote. People think, it works against you because you can't hire the good people. But I mean, take a look at Mark, who used to work for us. He set up an agency, which all the other agencies are in London, and he can then attract good staff from our catchment area, and he doesn't have to pay London prices, and he very rarely loses his good members of staff to London, because actually, living and working in the southwest is important to me. We talked last week about how important location can be to people, and actually where you work is as important as what you do.
And making it in their comfort zone, because not too many people, like we talked about, move out of their comfort zone. So if you're making it feel as if they're in a comfort zone when they're working for you, then there's no chance of them wanting to move on for most people. Precisely.
But obviously those are the ones that you want to keep. So what do we do with the ones that we don't want to keep?
Get a hula hoop?
Well, yeah. What we tend to do is, let's get a little disclaimer in here first. That we are not HR specialists. Right? If you've got any doubts at all whether you're able to fire someone without ending up in a tribunal, speak to a HR specialist. We've dealt with one before called Jackie Mann. Jackie helped us out when we needed to let someone go. She was incredibly useful, so thoroughly recommend her. I will drop her link into the show notes. But yeah, if you've got a HR issue and you need to get rid of someone, it's possibly worth just having a quick chat with either someone if you've got a HR department, or if you're a one-man band or two-man band and you're looking to fire someone. If you're a one-man band, you want to fire someone, it's yourself. You are allowed to fire yourself. But yeah, just have a chat with them. So
when's the right time?
Well, to me, I think the minute you start wondering whether you should fire them, you probably should have already fired them. I think the quickest we've had was 2 months. But I do know of people who've literally fired someone on the same day they started.
Oh, right.
Literally, they walked in, it was like, okay, you are not a good fit. You do not belong here. Or something's got to go majorly wrong to get fired on your first day, hasn't it?
It pretty much has.
But I think you've got to be ruthless. It's no good hoping they'll change or they'll eventually come good. We talked way back now about compounding, about playing with these compound interest calculators. We'll sit down with a calculator and work out where's your business going to be if you take a crap member of staff out of the business and replace them with a brilliant one. Compound that for a few years, and I think you would scare yourself stupid, because you can either have the short-term pain of oh, I've got to have a difficult conversation with him. I've got to sack somebody. Oh, I don't like doing that. Nobody likes sacking people, apart from Donald Trump, perhaps, and Alan Sugar. But you can either have that short-term pain of having a difficult conversation, letting that person go, or you can have the long-term pain of them being stuck in your business for years on end, dragging you down and slowing your growth. That compounded over, well, I mean, you get really bad member staff stays for 5 years, that could cost you tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pounds in sales compared to getting rid and getting a superstar in. You've got to be ruthless. The other thing that happens if you keep bad staff is that the good staff then resent the bad member staff because they don't work as hard, they don't, they're not as good, they're not as friendly. They seem to get away with stuff because, well, I don't behave like that, but if I did that, I wouldn't get away with that, I'd be sacked. And then before you know it, the good staff start resenting them, they start working left, they eventually leave. So you've kept the bad ones.
Or even worse, they come down to their head level. That's
Yeah.
the bad. So that's the quiet, the slowest one in the team kind of thing. Well, let's do it their way because, they're doing that, and they're getting breaks, and they're doing things. We can have a bit of that, thank you.
Well, exactly. I mean, you look back to when we expanded back in 2004, 2005, we expanded far too quickly, far too big. We took on a load of crap staff and some good ones. But because we had so many bad people, it was a horrible place to work, the good ones are the ones that bloody left first.
Yeah.
So that left us just with the bad ones, and then the bad situation got even worse.
Yeah.
I remember there was a saying that if you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about a staff member and you aren't already sleeping with them, then you need to fire them.
Okay.
So, how to fire them? To me, it's got to be done face-to-face if you can. I mean, the last one we haven't done face-to-face because one was in the Outer Hebrides, or similar to it. certainly in the Highlands somewhere. It was very hard to find. And the other one was kind of 250 miles away. So, it was kind of, we did it over the phone. But if you can, face-to-face, arrange it in advance so that IT know or member of staff knows, right, actually, whilst they're in this meeting, they know what's going to be happening in there. Access to sensitive files, etc. Everything can be removed whilst they're in there with you. And just come out with that first line, because that hardest line is always the first line is always the hardest bit. Sorry, Jason, we're going to have to let you go.
No surprise there, then.
No. Well, it is the 5th time you've heard it.
But to be fair, that to whoever you say that to, they will know, unless your business has gone drastically wrong and you're having to let them go because you can't afford them. That's the reason. If it's because of their performance, they'll be 100% know it's on its way, and they'll be surprised that it's lasted quite so long. In most cases. Yeah,
it's very rarely a surprise, is it? I mean, don't get into a slanging match. Well, Rob works harder, I work harder than Rob does, or he said, she said. Just stick to the facts. Quite often, have a letter to hand to them, because they won't remember a lot of what you said after I'm going to have to let you go. Because whoa, what do you mean? They won't hear, well, it's because your performance hasn't been good enough and we had this issue here. They'll just stick to the facts. Your performance wasn't up to scratch. This is the expectation we have. This is what your level of performance has been. This is going to be your notice period. This is now is your last day of work. You're not going to work your notice period. I mean, we have done that before, where we've sacked someone and they've worked the notice period. I think we got lucky that we didn't get completely screwed over that, because why would you want a fired employee working in your business?
On self-destructive.
Yeah, they can do far more damage than the kind of lost wages of paying them to do nothing for a few weeks or a few months. It's so they've gone out. You then not before. So there's no whispers about what's happening before. So immediately after they go out, you then need to let all the other staff know that they've left. Don't go into reasons. I've sacked Jason because he was awful and he was sleeping with Rob. But let them know what the plan is.
Vivid imagination you have there.
I can only work with what's in front of me. What's the plan for replacing them, for covering them? And then you need to go hire a superstar to replace them, because that is the difference. Get those bad people, get that cancer out of your business and replace it with that flood of nutrients that is a really, really good member of staff. Because when you've got a superstar in place, that is when your business skyrockets. And I think we're very, very fortunate to be in the position now where we've got a small team of superstars. You know, I think almost every single person we've got, without exception, you know, I would happy to have them in any business I've got.
But yeah, I think it's also important that you do have to go through that process sometimes of finding
You've got to kiss
some
a few
of the,
frogs, haven't you?
kissing a few frogs or a few bad apples or however you want to kind of put it. But you know, try them out and you'll find that superstar, because there are loads and loads of superstars out there, and every single person's a superstar, but not necessarily for you and right for your business and the way it is. So they'll understand it, you'll understand it, and your business will grow a lot quicker.
Cool. So that is it, guys. As always, if you've got any questions relating to staff, and I know we've kind of whizzed through this at a fairly brisk pace, we could have probably gone well over an hour on this. Please head over to the Facebook community, which is bigidea.co.uk/Facebook, and we can continue the conversation there. So if you've got any questions, any concerns about, you know, hiring that first member of staff, firing that first member of staff, who should I take on? How fast should I expand? You know, anything like that. We've got a thread going on in there, so you can just ask away. We're in there to help you and to talk to you. Other than that, show notes are available on the website, which is
bigidea.co.uk/podcast.
I do.
Where you'll also find all of our previous episodes. All of our previous videos are in there. All the links to all the platforms which you can listen to your podcast on. And show notes as well, as we've just said. They're all in there too. I
do. And as always, guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to leave us a nice review, 5 stars or above. They aren't above, but 5 stars would be good. On iTunes or Stitcher or whatever platform you're listening to this on right now. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Big Idea Podcast. We shall see you then. Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye-bye.
There we go.
Staff, yes, good question, good topic, and so vast as well. There's lots of areas which perhaps we could cover as well. But
I'll say that was a kind of 100-mile-an-hour overview, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Red, welcome. How do you do? How about you actually train crap staff? There's a difference between poor fit and not being trained properly.
Yeah, I think. Well, say if you're hiring for attitude over aptitude, then as long as the attitude is good, you should be able to train them up in the skills that you need. Obviously, they need to be malleable and pliable as well, in terms of they need to be able to be trained.
Yeah.
You know, you can have a really nice person who gets on really well with all the team, but isn't actually interested in doing the work.
I say attitude. They've got to be willing to learn. They've got to be willing to learn your way. They've got to be able to prove that they can do it the way that you'd like them to do it. If they can't, then they're not a fit, and that's when they don't stay. To sum it up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'd be concerned about poor fit. That would be my biggest concern. Would be, well, actually, you know, if they're not gonna fit in, I would rather get rid anyway. And I think that would almost be my default position anyway. Is people say hire fast, fire fast, and I think you've got to do that, because you know within a month, maybe 2 months, if someone's working out or not.
Yeah.
You know, we've had that with certainly our last 5 hires. Yeah, you've known within. I mean, you say Joe started in September. Within a week, he'd covered his wages.
Yeah.
It was like, that's worked. You know, we just knew straight away that we had a superstar there. Rob hit the ground running with the marketing stuff. It's like, okay, cool. Don't need to worry about him. You know, whereas that could have been, well, actually, Rob's needing quite a lot of training. You know, actually, you know, he's not quite picking it up as he should.
It's back to knowing what your role is as well, that you're employing for. If you're looking for somebody who's a doer, you know, doing the marketing and is able to do the marketing, then, you know, Rob was perhaps the wrong person to have taken on for that role, because he needed to be trained to do that. If you're looking for someone, perhaps an apprentice or something like that, who needs to learn to do it in the way that you'd like them to do it, then there's a different role there that you're looking for, and actually you want one of nurturing and one of training, and so that is quite good.
I think that's perhaps where a lot of people go wrong with the first hire is they've been this jack of all trades. They've done everything themselves, and so the first person they hire, they try and replicate themselves and say, right. I mean, I probably did that with you as well. No, it's like, right, well, you could do the copyright, and you can answer the emails, and you could do this, and it's like, whoa, almost. Yeah, you need to go back again. If you've read the E-Myth, one of the things they get you to do in there is write out your organisational chart.
Yeah.
Even if you are the only person in the company, write out. So John is head of marketing, John is head of sales, John is T-boy, John is office cleaner. John does the coding, John does the design. But then eventually, you take your name out of those jobs and say, right, so we're putting a director of marketing in there. Or actually, we've got an office cleaner now. Or actually, we've got someone who does the design. And you fill those roles. Now, it may well be that your first hire is actually, John does this and Jason does that. But there's clearly defined roles. So I'm not standing on your toes, you're not standing on my toes.
But I suppose the easiest, hire in the outsourcing type of thing is back to kind of actually, John does the ironing and John hates the ironing, so that's not what I'm going to do. So
what don't I want to do?
Here's 3 hours a week that we can give out to somebody to do the ironing, or
Yeah.
here's, I don't want to clean the house, and here's some time to do that.
Yeah.
And those aren't necessarily business critical time, but they are giving you the flexibility to take your time out to put it back into the business.
Yeah.
And they're easy because they're kind of they're freelance and they're outsourced, really, aren't they? They're not,
Yeah.
you're not employing them, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they might be the easiest hires.
Cool. So, Mark, how much have you missed?
You didn't miss much at all, Mark, because you came in just after we started, so hopefully you caught it all.
Cool. And just left a question as well. So, on Upwork/Elance, do you stick to UK-based workers, or are you happy to look at cheaper countries where skills possibly are still good, such as places like India, Poland, etc.? Yes and no. I had a crap VA from the Philippines once who literally followed your instructions to the letter, and you needed to spend as much time writing the brief for her role as she actually saved you by doing the work.
Yeah.
But then we've had some really good coders. Particularly Poland, I think Russia, we've had a few for specific tasks. But
again, it's knowing the role, it's knowing what you want them to do, it's getting the brief right, and that's a good word for it, I guess, isn't it? Getting the brief right, whether that's you employing somebody or outsourcing something. You're only going to get back what you've put into that brief, really.
What's that saying? Sort of VAs now that are customer facing and supporting us, they're from Manchester.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of the admin tasks they're doing, they're probably outsourcing to India and places like that. I don't know.
It's again, you can try before you buy. So you kind of, using them, finding someone. If you find somebody that works well for you and what you're wanting them to do in India, then absolutely, let's have them and let's send the work their way. That makes sense.
But I would say if you're going to India, don't go to India and look for the cheapest person in India. Look for the most expensive person in India, because you're making that saving by going abroad, by actually going offshore. So look for the best person there. Look for the person, if everyone else is charging $1.50 an hour, look for the guy that's charging $2.50 an hour or $2.25 an hour. You're still saving hugely compared to employing someone here, but you're getting the best of the best. It's like we do with the property investment. If we go to an area that isn't, or a city that isn't the greatest city, we will always look for the best street in a secondary city. If we're in Manchester, or we're looking at, say, London, we don't buy in London, but say we were looking at London, we'd look at the suburbs, we'd look at pretty much any area, because you get that whole lift from the whole city. Whereas actually, we've gone to Bradford, for example, which is kind of a bit of a secondary city, and what we've done there is we've actually gone and looked for the best property in the best street in Bradford. And I would apply the exact same approach to outsourcing, particularly, say, if you're looking abroad. I would look for who is the best person I can get.
The other tip, I guess, is to have a look at other briefs that other companies have put up. other companies and who are putting in quotes for those.
Cool.
And you can see
I
how
just want to re-answer that, mate, because it looked like we lost signal there for a while.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
We lost signal for a little bit, did we?
I
Okay.
did, just during your last answer, I think. Yeah.
I was just going to say, in like places like Elancer and things, you can have a look at what the competitors are up to, and you can find a job which is something that you're wanting them to do, and see who's filing for that particular job each time. And you can then kind of pick up whether they get the job or whatever else. So you're looking at the other companies and finding out how they are doing it. Does that make sense? The second time around?
Yeah, I think so.
It does, yeah. So yeah, if this guy from India is putting in for lots of jobs and they're giving him the job, then there's a chance that he's perhaps good quality. Looking at after the reviews as well.
Yeah, reviews are key, I think.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they haven't bought those reviews on Fiverr.
Yeah.
Outsourced them to India as well, yeah. Cool, so as you may have heard...
We've been invaded.
We have been invaded. My kids have just arrived home, it's half term. So they're trying to whisper in the background now very quickly. So yeah, these are my outsourcers. I get them to do all my work now. They're 7-year-old and 5-year-old. They're good. They're not quite able to go up the chimneys anymore, but
Well, you go with scissors and put stripes in your lawn.
So yeah, so hopefully we've answered any questions you've got, guys. If we haven't, just leave a question on here. As I said, if you're picking this up after the live recording, leave a comment on here. We'll keep this thread going. We're in here all week. So yeah, and other than that, we'll be back. So we'll do a live in between now and then. But other than that, we'll see you next week for episode 13 of the podcasts. Unlucky for some. See you next week, guys.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now the sun's on my screen, so I can't find the finish button. There